Hi everyone, and welcome to Hope from Home, the show where we bring you conversations of hope from our home to yours. Today, Jermaine speaks with Pope John Paul II's biographer, George Weigel, about his new book, The Next Pope, that he wrote while self-isolating. Marianne learns all about running a business during these last couple of months, and Noel speaks with the principal of St. Michael's College School about what school might look like in September. And of course, they all tell us where they're finding hope from our home to yours.
Good morning, George. Welcome to Hope from Home.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Love to know what inspired you to write The Next Pope. I'll just go out there and tell you it was a very enlightening and interesting read, but I'd really love to know what made you want to write that.
Well, thanks for the kind words about the book. I've had a rather unique experience over the past 35 years. As the biographer of John Paul II, I was put in circumstances where I have gotten to know personally and have had intense conversations, not only with John Paul II, but with Benedict XVI and now with Pope Francis. I've also, over these past 35 years, had an opportunity to speak with and indeed work with Catholics from all over the world, Latin America, Africa, Asia, Europe, all over North America. And what I'm trying to do in this book, The Next Pope, The Office of Peter and a Church in Mission, is bring all of that experience together through the prism of the Office of Peter. What does this unique Catholic thing have to do with the future of the Church? How does thinking about how the Office of Peter should lead the Church, the next Pope should lead the Church, help us all think about our responsibilities as Catholics in the Church of the New Evangelization. So this is a little summary of what I think the Church needs to be thinking about, where the Church needs to be going, and how really all of us, not just the next Pope, need to be part of it.
Yeah, I could definitely see that synthesis of knowledge that you got from all of the different popes. And you did touch on a lot of different challenges and ways to look to the future. But obviously, since writing that your book, we've had some new challenges. Like, for example, with the global pandemic, global unrest with the anti-race protests that are going across the world. With these sort of things, and likely they're not going to be the last we'll see in our history going forward. How can the next Pope prepare for things like that?
I actually wrote this book at the beginning of the pandemic. So this is in a sense a pandemic project. I haven't been in my office for 3 months. So I was grateful for the opportunity to pull this small book together. What the Church brings to these global crises, and what the next Pope, like his predecessors, must bring to these crises, is a vision of the inalienable dignity and value of every human person. Every life matters. Everyone is a someone for whom the Son of God became incarnate, suffered, died, and was raised from the dead. And in Christ, we see what we hope for all of humanity. In the Holy Trinity, we see a communion of persons in a relationship of self-gift and receptivity, and that's a model for the world. Now, I happen to think that during this pandemic, we've seen a lot of that solidarity expressed, and that is an expression of genuine Christian values. In terms of these issues of who's who and what's what, the Catholic Church is colorblind. The Catholic Church is the most remarkable gathering of people in the world. It has African, Asian, European, Latin American leadership of very high caliber. And in that sense, the Church can model for states, for nations, for civil societies, how it is that we bring all of the gifts in our communities to bear on solving the problems that those communities face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is a great thing in Catholicism to seeing what people are able to come together. I'd say maybe it's less colorblind as versus more so as actually seeing people and seeing, as you touched on, seeing that innate value. If you see Christ in all of us, then we'll act accordingly and really create a better world. Something that
I think about John Paul II in this respect. I mean, here is a Polish Pope who has, as his principal theological advisor, a German, who has as his chief of making bishops around the world, an African, who surrounds himself with people from all over the world and makes a team out of it. Mm-hmm. This is a quite extraordinary experience. Works a lot better than the United Nations does. So I think we've got something to offer here. Not just a vision of the human person that's created in the image of God and redeemed by Christ. We've actually got some experience in, if you will, multicultural leadership in the Catholic Church.
Yeah, excellent point. St. John Paul II really created a model for us to work with, for sure. We're in the era where the evangelized must become the evangelizer. So folks like myself work at the Salt and Light or who work at Catholic Charities. Our mandate, our work is to do that, to promote Catholicism, not Catholic Light. But for lay people who don't work in scenarios like Salt and Light or other charities, how can they take up the mantle of evangelization and to promote Catholicism?
Well, I addressed this in the next Pope as I did in an earlier book called Evangelical Catholicism. The key move is for everyone in the church to understand that everyone is a missionary. Missionaries are not just brave men and women who go off to exotic and often dangerous parts of the world to bring Christ and the gospel there. Every Catholic was baptized into a missionary vocation. Each one of us was given the Great Commission, go and teach all nations, on the day of our baptism. And we're all going to do that in different ways. We're each going to do that in a unique way. The quality of our lives is itself an instrument of evangelization. At a time of polarization, if we can be people who get real conversations going, that's an instrument of evangelization. At a time when people silo themselves and live in little bunkers of their own creating, when we reach out across boundaries of class and race and creed and whatnot, that's an instrument of evangelization. Yeah. There are also some very simple evangelical tools that are available to every Catholic. Invite someone to come to Mass with you on Sunday. Invite someone into your house to watch Bishop Barron's Catholicism service. There are very simple, hands-on things that are available to each of us. But the first step is that conversion of mind, that conversion of the imagination, so that we each understand ourselves as having a missionary vocation.
Those are really great tangible steps that people can easily implement. So that's great to hear. A big thing that we always want to know from Hope from Home is people's hopes. So what is your hope for people and the Catholic Church during this time and going forward?
The hope of the Catholic Church resides in Jesus Christ. In Jesus Christ, crucified and risen, the Catholic Church believes, proclaims, teaches, and ought to live the truth that God is passionately in love with the world he brought into being, God has entered that world and its history in order to direct that history to its proper end, which is union with God forever. And that we are, as Catholics, the privileged bearers of that message. Catholicism is not just an ethnic identity. It's not just a lifestyle. It's a commitment to proclaim the truth of God in Christ and to offer others the hope that is within us, as the first letter of Peter says, and that is the hope that comes from friendship with the Lord Jesus Christ and incorporation into his body, which we call the church.
That's a wonderful and beautiful hope. Really, thank you greatly for your time. Thank you for your book. It's definitely a great read, and I will make a point to go through the rest of your work. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be with you.
I'm here with Joe Shahadi from Playa del Rey, California. Joe is a business owner. He has founded and run Playa Pharmacy alongside his wife for the past 11 years. Joe, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm very happy to be here.
Happy to have you, Joe. So just to start off, can you tell me some more about your pharmacy business? I understand that you run a very unique, not your everyday kind of business. Can you share with our viewers some more about that?
Yeah, so we've had that business for 11 years, as you mentioned, and I started with my wife, and I'll tell you two things about that business that I think makes it kind of unique. First, when we started, my wife and I, we asked ourselves, who's the CEO of that business? Is it you? Is it me? Or who is it? And right away, with our Christian upbringing, we decided that Jesus is going to be the boss. He's going to be the CEO. And we refer to the sentence in the gospel that says, where two or three are gathered, I am in their midst. So we decided that any decision we take in the pharmacy business, in our business, will be taken when both of us, we sit down and we feel like we are in a loving attitude toward the other, and an idea comes, and it has really worked for us. And that's it continues to work. The second thing is that we are a part of a project, international project called the Economy of Communion. And what it is, it's about 800 businesses around the world. 40 of them are in North America. And we are rooted in Jesus' prayer that says, may they all be one. And in the context of an enterprise, who are the all? Who are the stakeholders? It's my coworkers, my customers, the vendors, my competitors, my neighbors in the shopping center. All these, if my objective is to, as much as possible, be together, work as a community together. And another idea that comes, an evangelical idea, is that the first community of Christians. The Acts of Apostles tell us that there was no one in need among them. So while we are, dealing with the business issues, we always think, what are the needs of that worker, the needs of that competitor, even, etc. These are like, and then we go by. So how do we apply it? We apply it by living what we call the culture of giving. So, we all live in a culture of having, what's in it for me, and it's very dominant. And we try to counteract it by saying, what can I give? And when I give, we experience, and I think everybody experiences, that we get the 100-folds for the business and for everything.
When the pandemic happened, you, as a business owner, were unsure whether to stay open or not. Can you walk me through your decision to stay open?
Yes. First, as an essential business, as a pharmacy, we wanted to stay open, because people, their health depend on products that we sell. But, one first thing that happened then is that we did not have any masks for our use and any gloves, and we felt it's unsafe for us, for our staff to work. So, and I didn't want to close, but at the same time, So what I did is that I said, let me share with my customers that concern, which was a little unusual, to do, but I did. And then the next day, an elderly woman, a customer, she sent me a message telling me, I have one mask, it's yours, you should come and get it. And then other people started giving us a few masks here and there. A doctor's office learned about that. They had an extra few boxes of gloves. They gave it to us. Then before the week ended, one customer of ours had ties with overseas, and she was able to import very quickly 1,000 masks. So we took these masks and we used them for ourselves, but then we shared them with the community to try to keep the community safe. We shared a little bit also with some local hospitals and other organizations that needed it. So this is the first thing that happened during the pandemic, and it was really a way to start to say that we felt the presence of God among us, and He's telling us, go ahead with what you're doing.
Wow, that feels, like you said, very providential, really, and it's great that you got to share those masks, even more after receiving them. And so, what does a typical day at the pharmacy look like nowadays? Are there any moments or experiences that you would like to share?
Well, first, the general mood has been, I would describe it as anxiety and stress. So everybody entering the pharmacy, even ourselves coming, we leave our families and we come to work, and everybody is coming, and we are a point in the community where people come and share their anxieties. They come and they share, they want something for it. They want, what can I do? I cannot sleep, etc. So my wife and I made it our first job to every customer that comes to first listen to them. And before recommending supplements or going to the doctor, we recommended to them, go knock on your neighbor's door, see how your neighbor is, go walk at the beach, are you eating fruits and vegetables? And some customers told me, if you continue to do that, you're going to be poor at the end because people will not eat you. But actually, it was a very good strategy for the business, but also this is mostly also paying attention to the needs of the employees. Some are single moms, they needed to be home at a certain time, so accommodating everybody's schedule according to their safety, to their family need, to their this has been, and it continues to be a very beautiful experience. We feel the ties with the community have been very strong. Like to tell you an example, with the unrest that's happening these days in the United States, and pharmacies are being looted. And I saw yesterday many customers coming telling me, what are you going to do? How are you going to protect? A customer told me, would you like me to come and sleep in the pharmacy, so to prevent something from happening? Others said, do you want us to call the police for you, etc. But it's all, things that tells me that, when we care for others, it's like we get the 100-folds. And so this is how our day-to-day experiences are in the pharmacy.
And Joe, do you have any final thoughts that you might want to share? Is there anything that you would like to add?
Well, I will add to you, like, for example, I said about the principles that we live. For example, when the pandemic started, my relation with my competitors. And there is one competitor that he took a lot of my customers. But when the pandemic started, I said, let me call him, see how he's doing. And then when I called him, he told me that there is a service that I'm offering that he doesn't know how to apply for it. So I helped him to apply for it. And yesterday, when the looting of pharmacies started, he was also the first on my mind. I told him, I called him to see how they are doing. And he was very impressed with that. And also with my, taking care, being the first to look at people that live around me. My neighbor, I had a neighbor who doesn't speak good English, and he needed to apply for loans for his business. So I helped him apply for that. So basically, I'm saying all that to say that the final word is one of the principles of the economy of communion is be the first to serve, and then, or be the first to help. So my desire that each one of us applies this in our own life at home, and you'll see our experience that if I am the first to help, then 100-folds will come to me.
That's so beautiful, Joe. That's very wonderful to hear. Joe, thank you so much for sharing your experience on the show. It was so great to hear from you and about your pharmacy and just the things that you have to share. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Happy to do that.
Hello, James McKinnon. Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Hope from Home.
Nice to be here, Noel. Thank you.
Okay. As the principal of St. Michael's College School here in Toronto, can you talk to us a little bit about how St. Mike's College is preparing for the upcoming September school year, hopefully in a post-pandemic Toronto?
Wow. Yeah, we're looking forward to a post-pandemic Toronto, as everyone is, and there's a lot of planning going on to try to wade through the waters of some uncertainty. I try to keep telling people, if you go 10 weeks back of what our world was like, September's more than 10 weeks away. And so there's so much that's going to happen. Now, having said that, we need to be ready and be prepared. And so the work that we've taken on really has to do with, gathering feedback from our parents, our students, our staff, of how we've managed things this year to finish off, because we were able to complete studies at the school and keep our students engaged on a regular basis and a daily basis. And so, barring whatever changes come and what regulations come forward from our, chief medical officers and provincial regulation pieces, I mean, we would most, likely hope to be back as relative normal as we could, but we can't be certain. So what are we doing? We're looking at all of the restrictions that could possibly in place, take the lessons from online learning. We're planning to be able to be online again. We've got a September 2020 team at the school that's looking into being safe at school, connected at school, and learning at school. So really what we're trying to plan for.
Do you think that this pandemic has permanently changed the way classes will be done in the future in terms of e-learning options?
Yeah, I would say so. The learning at school component that we are looking into has a lot to do with what's the best pedagogy, what are the best tools, what's the best structure. We stuck to a pretty regular routine. We heard from parents that some type of routine was important. But we realize that, screen time matters. So we're looking at what we've learned around how some students have benefited from this type of learning, and how basically our staff and our students have got much more comfortable with the digital world. We've probably come further in leveraging digital in education in the last 10 weeks than we have in the last 10 years.
That's very interesting. That's an interesting analogy. Now, let's assume everything goes fine. We're back. The kids are back to school in September. What sort of social distancing or physical distancing policies will the students need to adapt to? So, we can start with the simple ones we all know and we knew before we left, really, as the virus story was starting. From hand washing more regularly, the coughing, protocols, but we'll have to deal with other things like how many people can be in closed spaces, how much space needs to be between them, what kind of protective equipment might be necessary for individuals, but also for community's sake in terms of shields and such. In the education world, it's quite interesting because there is some debate about, with all the restrictions that we see in place in some areas that open,
you kind of wonder, is that going to help with the socialization piece that we really want to bring the students back together for? So, from that perspective, those are all going to be nuances that we are working on and planning for.
Do you foresee any extracurricular or sport activities being affected by this in September?
Yeah, I think in the short term, the simple answer could be yes. The Connected at School group that we have working now is really trying to figure out the best routes through that. We have learned that as much as we've done well in the learning realm in the last 10 weeks, that socialization piece and that connection piece and that activity piece is definitely the part that needs to be developed further. And we'll probably rely on, sport governing bodies and other groups as we move forward to find out what activities we can start up, get to. We've seen golf, we've seen tennis, cross country running has potential, but some of those, close contact sports are ones that, yes, we're going to have to see how that plays out a bit.
So it's going to be certainly interesting September when the school year rolls around again.
It is going to be like no other, but that's okay because I think if we've learned anything, this has taught us that the need to be adaptive in today's world is probably more important than it's ever been, and that's what we're going to continue to work at.
Yeah, amen to that. I think we've got time for one last question. What personally gives you hope during this difficult time?
Wow. You know what? I will say one thing for sure is that God has a plan, and sometimes I don't know what it is. So that gives me some hope. I think the second part, though, is that I do believe in every challenge being a bit of an opportunity to learn something new and improve things. And so we're going to take advantage of that. And I said probably the last thing is that I have great hope in the people, because the people pull together, and it's amazing what can be accomplished as a whole group. So that's going to be our story.
Great. James, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. It was great having you on the show.
Oh, thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
And that's all for today. It's so good to hear from George Weigel. I'll have to remember that the key is for everyone in the church to understand that everyone is a missionary. And how interesting how Joe runs his pharmacy in California. Are you a business owner? How have the last couple of months been for you? And are you a student or a teacher? How do you see what schools will look like come September? Share your comments with us. Follow Salt and Light Media on all of our social media platforms and comment with the hashtag #HopeFromHome. If you miss any part of the episode and you'd like to watch it again, you can always visit our website, saltandlighttv.org/hopefromhome. We hope that these stories inspire you to stay positive and remind you that we're all still connected through hope.